Clock started, we can start sharing. Hey, everybody. When this timer's up, the show will begin.
You forgot to maximize it so you didn't have all the videos on the side. There you go. I'm going to mute myself while I'm waiting.
We'll be starting right after this timer. It's the mock draft results. What's up, everybody? It's the 4th-and-GOAL broadcast. Here we go.
It is. And I'm here too.
How we doing tonight, David? We got a heck of a show. I'm ready for this mock draft. I don't know about you.
I'm good. We needed just a hair more time. I've got so many people to tag here. It's crazy.
Everybody who's watching, if you can give us a share, please do.
Just a few more seconds here and I'll be ready to go. I know what we can talk about. Let's start with the news of the week. And I know this is near and dear to your heart. And that is, the Detroit Lion players, being suspended. Some of them gambled on the NFL, and I completely understand that because you got to have yourself some accountability. There has to be some openness where the integrity of the game must be protected. So I understand that. But just like all of the posts said, that we saw all over Facebook and all over everywhere, there is, the NFL's got some balls to say that it's not okay for their players to bet on other sports in their facility when it's illegal to do in the states that they were doing it in.
I 100% agree. You see my video, it's ridiculous. I looked it up. They're making up what's right now was reported is they're making about 270 mil. I've also read another article saying that when this keeps going and more it gets legal, more people who bet, that the NFL can make roughly up to like $500 million at some point if this works out the way they think it can for them. So you can make that kind of money, but you can't bet on a college sport after practice or when you're seeing team docs. And that's the ridiculous part of the rule. I'm not going to defend, him. He should have known better. He should have, made sure he knows the rules before you do that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, to have a rule like that when you're making multi-millions off of it on the side is just completely wrong and ridiculous. if you ask me. There, as long as it's not on the NFL game, there should be it shouldn't matter where that bet was placed. Now, if it's on the NFL game, yeah, kick them out of the league, suspend them for a year, do what you got to do at that point, because at that point they deserve everything they got. Like the 2 players that got kicked out of the team, don't feel sorry for. I don't feel nothing. What's up, Josh Dodd? How you doing tonight, buddy?
Mr. Johansson, Tim Johansson is in watching the show here.
What's up, Tim? Tim Johnson.
And I'd like to know other people's opinions. Please comment about, the suspensions to the Detroit Lion players. I feel like me and you, Chris, are on the same page, when it comes to just because they're in the facility doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to gamble on other things. Gambling on the NFL is one thing. Gambling on other stuff is a completely different subject. And I think that they should be able to appeal. And it turns out I was told they can't appeal this type of suspension, which is crazy to me.
So, but instance, I mean, basically, this is what I'm going to point, and I'm normally not this person, and I don't like to be this person, especially on our show, but I just want to throw this out there. Look at Deshaun Watson. He went through all that, 11 games. He's playing in the league. If you ask me what he was getting blamed for to appear to Jameson Williams betting on a college basketball game inside the Lions facility to get suspended is just just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson got the appeal. Brandon
Bigland said he should have got a year just like Ridley. Ridley literally bet on the NFL. Those other players, CJ Moore and Cephas or whatever, those guys got kicked completely off the team for the year and were cut. Okay,
exactly.
Because they're not stars. Ridley, he was suspended. Hell, he still got traded. That's the kind of value he had. Jameson Williams, and this is a joke that I saw on Facebook, has as many catches in the NFL as he has suspensions. I know you don't appreciate that, Chris.
Hey, it is what it is. I mean, he sat out for the year because his knee, and now he had
to get fixed up, and that's understandable. Little news on the Aaron Rodgers front, and this goes into our mock draft that we're going to be having here very shortly when we finish up our news of the week, and that is that the Jets and the Packers have resumed trade talks after a long delay. And it's been our opinion, I think, here on the podcast that, the Jets and the Packers were kind of stalling as we get closer to the draft. Now things are going to heat up. And one of the parts of our mock draft is we don't believe that this is actually what they're going to get. But we have the New York Jets in our mock draft trading their first-round draft pick to the Green Bay Packers for Aaron Rodgers. And so Green Bay is going to have 2 first-round draft picks in our mock draft here coming up. I think that it's going to, come right down to the wire, but they're going to get this done at some point in fashion before the draft, Chris.
I think so too. They're definitely at the table. Draft night's Thursday. So I think you could see something maybe done by Wednesday at the earliest. It could take the Thursday itself, to be honest.
Yeah. There was some talk that what they would do is that the Jets wouldn't make the trade until after they'd already used their first round draft pick. That way they couldn't give it to the Packers. That would force the Packers' hand to either accept next year's first rounder or take a lower pick.
I mean, yeah, if they want that number 1 pick, they better move on it now. I mean, to me, I don't know why both sides haven't got this deal done and just got over the whole drama. I mean, if I was Green Bay, I would have wanted to sell them first chance I got, make sure I got what I wanted. I wouldn't be trying to take my time and wait to draft night, because you wait too long, you might be getting a first round for next year, like you said, and taking lower picks for this year.
Yeah, well, I think there could be a little bad blood there between Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. And so I think some of this stalling is just to stick it to him a little bit, because, he's done this to them, stalled the last couple of years on decisions about whether he wanted to be with the team. He hasn't attended OTAs. He's done just about everything to make the front office's life miserable. I think a little turnabout might be fair play in this case.
I'm not arguing that case with you at all, because I know if he was my quarterback and he did what they did to me, if he pulled the things he's pulling, I would feel the same type of way. And what I want a little payback, because I mean he did this to him last year. It's been a nothing but a drama saga. If he's retiring, playing, what he's going to do for probably a good 4 years solid right now.
Yeah,
so both teams, I think, are getting sick of it.
I know a lot of people are getting tired of it, getting tired of talking about it. And so I think we should move on. We want to get to the mock draft, but we got one more big story from this week. And Jalen Hurts got paid in Philadelphia, Chris.
Yes, he did.
He becomes the highest paid player in the NFL at an average of $51 million per season on a 5-year contract for $255 million. This solidifies him as the starting quarterback going forward for the Eagles. There was a lot of talk prior to last season that it was going to be basically a prove-it year for him. They gave him the weapons he needed, and he took them to the Super Bowl, nearly winning that game against the Chiefs.
Honestly, that's huge. I think that's huge for Eagles. And you know who I think that really screws?
Lamar Jackson?
For sure, because if you look at that guaranteed money.
Yeah, he didn't get a fully guaranteed contract. And so Lamar Jackson ain't going to get one either. I'm telling you, they're going to stick by their guns with that 3-year, $133 million deal, because of his injuries the last couple of years. Now, there may be some tinkering because this contract comes along. The Kansas City Chiefs, had a press conference here this last week and said that they were not going to adjust Patrick Mahomes' contract until Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert got their contracts. And so once all these other players get their contracts, settled, Mahomes has been adjusting his contract to give them more room under the salary cap to help them keep kicking the can down the road, giving them an opportunity to be winners year after year. And so by the time these other guys get their contracts done, the salary cap will be much higher, and they'll be able to continue to make good deals with him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll definitely see what's going to happen because, Lamar Jackson hasn't had a phone call from what's been reported. There has been no contract offers. And now with this, it's either he's going to sign the contract he was offered from Baltimore or he might not be playing. I don't know what's going to happen at this point.
Well, we're on the verge of our mock draft. I want to send some shout outs here and some thanks to all of the people that helped participate in this. I've got a list here on my phone of all the people that helped us. And I want to just say thank you to all of them. I'm going to tell you who they are, what teams they picked for, and then we'll mention them again as we go. The Carolina Panthers are being picked by Steve Kearns. Want to thank Robert Ross for the Houston Texans, Megan Barr for the Arizona Cardinals, Jesse Stickle for the Indianapolis Colts, Stephanie Freese-Sladek and her son Liam for the Seattle Seahawks. I want to thank Christopher Serra Jr. for the Detroit Lions. We've got Gregory Drake for the Las Vegas Raiders, Troy Strong for the Atlanta Falcons, Tim Johansson for the Chicago Bears, Tisha Warner for the Philadelphia Eagles, Tammy Henshaw for the Tennessee Titans, Chris Halamuda for the Green Bay Packers, Josh Dodd for the New England Patriots, Robert Ponche for the Washington Commanders, We've got Teresa McCall for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Josh Bagakis, I hope I got it right, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Doug Bieltog for the Los Angeles Chargers, Mandy Brill Sawyer for the Dallas Cowboys. I picked for the Minnesota Vikings, Tim Isaacs for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Brandon Bigland for the New York Giants, Dontario Moore for the Baltimore Ravens, Matt Lowe for the Buffalo Bills, Larry Black for the Cincinnati Bengals, Jason Borden for the New Orleans Saints, and Stanley Palmer for the Kansas City Chiefs. And with that, the Carolina Panthers are on the clock, Chris. Talk about their needs, buddy.
Oh, definitely. I have a hunch it's going quarterback because they added a lot of players in the free agency period of this offseason. So the only thing I think they need right now, well, right off the bat, is a quarterback for the future. I'm sure they could add up more on defense, maybe a couple even O-linemen through this draft to beef up that line, because that was the one thing they had bad for them. That O-line last year didn't hold up too good. But as long as they can get their future quarterback, build up on O-line, maybe add some defensive players, this team's definitely going in the right direction.
I love what they did in the offseason when it comes to all the weapons that they've added. For those that don't know, you've got Miles Sanders comes over at running back from Philadelphia, Hayden Hurst, the tight end from Cincinnati. They get Adam Thielen from the Minnesota Vikings. You know, there is 3 weapons right there. Andy Dalton's probably going to start the season as the quarterback. And whoever they select, I think, unless they show in training camp and they show in, you know, the preseason and stuff, that they're the man and that they can handle the pressure and you're not throwing them to the wolves. I know we have a difference of opinion on who they should take. I personally think it should be C.J. Stroud. I think he's the gunslinger here. But you have a thing against Ohio State quarterbacks. Tell us all about that.
I just don't trust it. But like I said, I've made some stuff to share when it comes to time when these guys are picked. And I'll actually be honest, because I did a lot of research today before the show and realized that they're not as far off as I think they are.
Yeah. You forgot to hit share a screen.
Oh. There we go.
With the first pick of our mock draft, which I still can't do. Come on.
Hang on.
Steve Kearns is selecting for the Carolina Panthers.
There you go.
And with the first selection in the first round, the Carolina Panthers go to your number 1 pick is quarterback Bryce Young of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
First one off the board, see?
I still, like I said, I don't disagree. I just think that if it was me, I would have gone with C.J. Stroud. You know, no matter who the starter is, I still think that it's going to be, you know, someone that needs an opportunity to sit behind the starter and learn at the foot of a professional for a little while before they throw him in there to the wolves. You know, so a lot of these guys that come in, they struggle because they've got bad offensive lines. They've got, don't have a lot of weapons around them. But I think that Carolina has a lot of weapons, and I think that Bryce Young could flourish in this. I'm a little concerned about his size. That's my main issue with him. I will tell you that he's won the Heisman Trophy. You know, he has led them, in some big games in the SEC, so he's not a slouch, and so I have a little information here I forgot to point out.
I can share. I made this graphic today.
Go ahead. 47 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, 2 years ago when he won the Heisman Trophy.
Here we go.
32 touchdowns and 5 interceptions this year.
Yeah, I got his stats right here. 2020, he only played 9 games, 13 completes, 22 attempts, 59 completions, only 156 yards and a passing TD, and 9 rushing yard attempts, negative 23 yards rushing with 0 touchdowns.
Right.
21 was his first starting year. He played 15 games. He completed 366 out of 547 for a completion rate of 669, 4,872 yards, 47 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 81 rush attempts, 0 yards. Amazingly, that's what shocked me, is how you run the ball 81 times but get 0 yards. And he did manage to rush for 3 touchdowns, though. And in 2022, last season, he played 12 games, 245 out of 380, completed 64% with 3,328 yards, 32 touchdowns, 5 INTs, 49 rushing attempts with 185 yards and 4 TDs. And he wraps up with his career with 36 games with a 65% completion rate, with a total of over 8,300 yards, 80 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 139 rushing attempts, rushing yards 162, and 7 rushing touchdowns. So he shows he's a thrower, but he's good but he's good in the pocket. He's good moving around. I think he's going to look good for the Panthers, honestly. I think he's a perfect fit, not too far from Alabama. He should fit in pretty good because, the Alabama fans are everywhere.
That means that with Houston on the clock here, we're looking at, probably CJ Stroud going to Houston. They could need a lot of players, on that team. They brought in Devin Singletary. They already had Damon Pierce at the running game. They traded away Brandon Cooks at the wide receiver spot. And so weapons are a little thin for Houston. They could go in another direction, but I think it's going to be CJ Stroud. And so let's take a look at the second selection here in our draft. This pick was made by Robert Ross. With the second pick in our mock draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson, the edge rusher from Alabama. So they do not go with the quarterback here at pick number 2. And so D'Amico Ryans, the new head coach of the Houston Texans, is looking to anchor that defense. It looks like they're going to go right now with Case Keenum at quarterback. Now, they do have another pick later on in the draft that they could make a trade and do something there to get themselves a quarterback. But as of right now, it looks like they want to bolster that defense, Chris.
I knew Will Anderson was probably not going to be there at 6 like I would have liked him to be, but I didn't see him going at 2. This is a shocker to me. But Texans, they need a lot of help. So maybe they think building a defense first and then maybe going quarterback later in the draft. We'll have to wait and see. They kind of got me shocked because I was expecting CJ Stroud to be number 2. That's how I thought it was going to be.
Well, and we've got the Arizona Cardinals on the clock here. Their phone's got to be ringing because there's other teams that I'm sure want a quarterback, and Arizona doesn't need one. What they need is they need offensive line, defensive line. They still have DeAndre Hopkins, and there's a chance that he could be traded. But a lot of things being said out there is that he'll end up getting cut because they need to reset their salary cap situation after putting themselves in a bind with the Kyler Murray contract.
All right, while we're waiting for this pick real quick, I'm going to share something real quick because you asked me a question that you wanted me to do for the show. Since we had 2 Alabama players go, this is 1 and 2. So here's the answer to that question. In 1984, New England drafted a wide receiver, Irving Fryer, and Houston selected guard Dean Stinkler, both from Nebraska. The first set of teammates taken in the first and second were Michigan State defensive tackle Bubba Smith, Baltimore, and running back Clint Jones, Minnesota.
Yeah,
so they had
this this will be if these guys are taking 1-2, like is in our prediction here in the mock draft. This will be the 4th time and the first since 2000 that teammates from the same college go 1-2 in the draft. In 2000, it was Courtney Brown and LeVar Arrington of Penn State.
Just let me know when you're ready for that other answer for the other question we had lined up.
I don't know what the other question was.
It was between Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. How much players in the last?
Oh, right. How many had been taken? Go ahead. You can do that now.
Okay.
Which college has had the most first-round draft picks taken over the last couple of years?
Yeah. Hang on. If you want, we can do this pick. I'll share it after. I got to find it real quick.
Okay. Well, listen, I got to be honest. I talked with, Jesse Stickle. Arizona offered a trade in behind the scenes to Tennessee. Tammy Hanshaw wasn't sure. Seattle said they're close enough to the top that they didn't need to make a move. Vegas didn't want to pull the trigger. And so the team that doesn't know what's going on with the other teams that decides to move up, Arizona traded this pick. Arizona trades the pick, and the team that is now on the clock, going up only one spot, is the Indianapolis Colts. And with that pick, Jesse Stickle selects for the Indianapolis Colts, and I don't think it's any surprise here because he didn't go at number 2. C.J. Stroud of Ohio State goes to the Indianapolis Colts at number 3.
Okay. Wow.
And so I've got a little bit here about C.J. Stroud.
Hang on, I got a stats right here.
He has thrown 85 touchdowns in the last 2 years at Ohio State. We've seen the game that he had against Georgia's great defense in the semifinal this last year in the playoffs in college. They nearly beat Georgia, who ended up winning the national championship with that defense. And so, C.J. Stroud, if he goes to Indianapolis, I think this is a good spot for him. And the reason why I think it's a good spot is because this is the person that will be able to sit behind Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew comes over because he is, he's familiar with the system of the new head coach of the Colts. Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Him and Minshew both come over. And so they're going to know the system. They'll be able to teach the other people on the team what the system is. He has proven to be a solid backup over the last few years, has Minshew, and, has come off the bench and played for Jalen Hurts when he was injured, and before that in Jacksonville when Foles got hurt. And so we've seen that he is a capable guy. Knowing the system, I think this is good here because if C.J. Stroud needs some time to get ready, he'll have that opportunity.
And this is where I'm going to own up C.J. Stroud because I was really against him. You can ask David. I don't think he was the number 1 QB, but I checked his stats. Here they are. And if you really look at it and pay attention, they're very close to Young. I mean, Young finished overall in his career with 80 touchdowns at the University of Alabama. Stout actually has 85 career touchdowns, 5 more touchdowns. Same amount of picks. They're both running styles very similar, but he's only played 27 games is the only real difference. And both of them finished with 8,000 yards and their QB rating 69 completion rate. It's pretty much right there. I mean, you can't beat that. So the Colts got their QB. And then here's the answer to that question, David. Here we go. It's actually pretty crazy because I didn't think this. Here's the answer. You got Ohio State in the last 2 years. Ohio State has had 3 first-round picks in the last 2 years. Georgia with the big old number 6 there for the last 2 years. And Alabama in the last 2 years has had 8 players selected in the first round.
Yep.
I mean, I hate them.
Listen, Alabama's consistency over the last several years, with Nick Saban being the guy there, it's no surprise to me. I'm not surprised also that Georgia's number 2 on this list as they've won back-to-back national championships. They're on the heels of basically dethroning a dynasty in Alabama these last couple of years.
They've definitely dominated. I mean, as a college football fan, I don't care. I don't really care for them. You know what I mean? But you cannot take away they produce a lot of NFL players. And they win a lot. They're always winning.
That leads us here back to the Arizona Cardinals, who are on the clock. This pick is being made by Megan Barr. She made a smart trade. The kind of trade of value and everything really is irrelevant because we're only doing the first round here. But basically, the one team that was willing to make a trade and move up to get their quarterback of the future was Indianapolis. Even though it was only one spot, they were concerned that one of the other teams was going to get their guy. And so Stickle pulled the trigger on it. And so Megan Barr is going to go here now with our 4th overall selection. New head coach right there in Arizona is Jonathan Gammon. He is the former defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. And with the 4th pick, they select Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. This is a guy that can anchor that defensive line as they try to rebuild it. Remember, J.J. Watt retired. And so Tyree Wilson has had 14 sacks and tons of pressure over the last 2 seasons. He's a wrecking ball up front in a conference that doesn't play a whole lot of defense in the Big 12.
They're definitely with defense, and this kid is pretty good. I've watched some video on him. I definitely like his style, and they need everybody in Arizona. So why not just start off with the one main position you really need off the bat, and you might as well build the defense because no offense, you're not getting your quarterback back until mid-season, maybe a little sooner depending on how everything goes this offseason. So why not start with the defense first and then, go from there, because when you're not getting your starting quarterback until so far in the season, your odds of actually making the playoffs are very slim to none. Let's just be real. I mean, you can never count a team out because this is football and anything can happen. But, kind of gotta be realistic when it comes to it.
Right. And so that brings us to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks have 2 first-round picks. This one here comes by way of the trade from last year for Russell Wilson. And the Seahawks made the playoffs. So being this high in the draft is a luxury. They were in the thick of the playoffs. They have their quarterback in Geno Smith. They found their running back this last year in Kenneth Walker III. And so to me, offensive and defensive line is where it's at for Seattle. What do you think, bud?
I think they're going defense, but they could go offense.
Boy, that's deep there, buddy.
I mean,
I'll tell you what, I'm surprised by the pick. The Seattle Seahawks pick is being selected by Stephanie Free-Sladek and her son Liam, who used to live in Seattle, and now they've moved back to Texas. And with that number 5 overall selection, sorry, Lions fans, Jalen Carter, defensive line from Georgia, goes to Seattle.
Sorry, Ken.
And I'm surprised by this because of the red flags we've seen here in this offseason. You know, you've got the wreck and the car crash. He showed up to his pro day overweight. You know, there was a lot of, and I attribute that possibly to stress eating. I don't think he's going to have a problem keeping himself underweight once he gets into training camp and he's around the other guys. But, you know, there's a lot of stress involved in all of his off-the-field troubles that he's been having here in this offseason, Chris. And I know you were looking at him with the next pick. Unfortunately, Seattle got him first.
It's unfortunately, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous. I feel confident in my pick. I've watched this kid personally play the last couple of years. So, but I was going to take Carter because I feel like Detroit was going to be the team that would take Carter if he was there. But from what I've heard on the radio, maybe not. It's all in the questions and where his head was at in the interviews. You know, unfortunately, none of us were here. So we don't know how the interview went behind closed doors. You know what I mean? We only know about the pro day. We only know about the incident. We don't know exactly where this kid is right now in his headspace. You know what I mean? He could have lost 9 pounds already. He could be ready to rock and roll. We don't know yet. I guess, but we're about to find out because, you know, rookie OTAs are not that far away now.
Well, and I think that Pete Carroll being a defensive-minded coach, I think may lead into this type of a pick here. You know, he feels comfortable. He has always been like a player's coach. And so if they sat down and they had themselves a conversation and they talk about, you know, what has happened, you know, and they get into the, you know, the nuts and bolts of everything that has caused them to be this way, perhaps, you know, this pick gets made here early on in the draft because he refused to schedule. And I don't know if this is prima donna or if this is, you know, realistic, you know, expectations. He refused to schedule any visits with any teams outside of the top 10. And a lot of those top 10 teams brought him in for a visit, despite what happened at the combine and the pro day.
I mean, he's lucky that happened because this could cost him because if not, one of those teams don't really take him in the real actual draft. Who knows how far he drops because he wouldn't meet with nobody else.
You want to make your pick?
I can make the pick.
Oh, hang on. I'm not ready. I screwed up.
Actually, if you want to make it, because I know you got the graphic to share anyway, and
right.
then I'll just take over because I made my own graphic.
Oh, you're fine. All right. So the Detroit Lions making the pick is Christopher Serra Jr., and he has selected with the number 6 overall selection. He thinks we need some more pass rush in Detroit, so he's going with Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa, for Detroit.
There's a couple reasons why.
Hang on, I've seen in the comments, Ken Fisher, you know, was asking for a corner, but you guys have loaded down the cornerback position and the secondary with free agents, you know, here in this offseason. You know, I don't think you guys have anything to worry about in your secondary. It's linebackers such as Lucas Van Ness off the edge and your pass rush. This will give you a lot of help with Aiden Hutchinson. That's
my thing. Also, I know we have other defense ends on our team, but this kid, he reminds me. I'm not going to say he's good as Hutchinson, but he reminds me how he plays a lot like Hutchinson. He don't take too many plays off. He plays tough. He gets to the blocks. If you want, I'm going to share my screen now, David. You want to exit out of that?
Close this off then. I got some stuff I got to switch anyway.
See, here we go. Sorry. Here we go. We're here. We got his stats. I mean, he only played really 2 years because of COVID, but he played both 13 games. His numbers are solid. He had 7 and 6 sacks both seasons. The dude, he's a beast. He's a good run stopper. And I feel like, you know, with him on the line, you got Hutchinson, you still got Kaminsky. So we're going to be able to rotate players and always rush for the QBs. The last couple of years, the Lions have been one of the last teams in sacks. We need to load up in the front. So if I'm going defense, and that's what I want a pass rush. We loaded up this offseason and free agency with cornerbacks. I can get a quarterback later in the draft. I don't need to sit there and spend a 6th-round pick on a cornerback right now. I'm going to take the edge rusher and wait till the 18th pick. And I believe this guy is going to help make the Lions' defensive line get it up there to the top 10. Because if we can get our defensive line up there, our linebackers are going to be okay because they're going to finally have help. And the last 2 years, they haven't had much help. You know, last year towards the end of the season, our D-line got going, but we need more. So that's where my head was at. I watched him play in the Big Ten against Michigan, against other teams last couple of years. I like the kid. The kid's very physical.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the main concern, you guys were putting up 30 points a game. Offensively, you're in great shape. Now, I know you had to switch your running backs. You lost Jamal Williams to, you know, the Saints, but you bring in David Montgomery from Chicago, who I think is more of a tackle-breaking machine. I don't think you're going to miss a step offensively, despite the, you know, Williamson didn't play last year. So you're not going to be missing him at receiver, you know, the first 6 games of the year. It was all about the defense was letting, you know, a lot of points in early in the year. They got a little better towards the end of the season. They brought in some more free agents. You know, they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson come in there. You know, you've got, you know, you kept, you know, Alex Alonzone. And so now here you are, you pick up, basically this guy can play the end or an outside linebacker position and help Aiden Hutchinson rush the passer. If they can't throw the ball, you know, if you stop them like that, they're not going to be able to put up those kind of points on you. And so I feel like you did a good job. And that means we switch here to the Raiders. And the Raiders were one of the teams that didn't want to pull the trigger on, you know, trading up to try and get C.J. Stroud. Of course, they have Jimmy Garoppolo, and he signed in there for a few years, you know, for the Josh McDaniels offense. They're waiting on Josh Jacobs to sign his franchise tag tender, or they're working on a long-term contract. The thing that I was as disappointed about when it came to the Raiders this offseason, I couldn't believe they traded Darren Waller. You know, the Giants got a gift for a 3rd-round draft pick. And so here we are with the Raiders on the clock. What do you think they go, Chris?
Honestly, I want to say possibly quarterback, but they could go defense or maybe even
Well, their defense has been terrible. When Derek Carr was there as the quarterback, he never had a defense better than 25th in the NFL the entire time, and they wanted to blame it on him for them not winning games. The offense did fine with him. It was the defense that let him down all these years, and I think he's going to do well in New Orleans. So, you know, Gregory Drake is making the pick here for the Las Vegas Raiders, and so we'll go to them for the 7th overall pick. The Las Vegas Raiders select the youngster Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. You know what? I talked to him about this, and he said he can sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo and learn. Anthony Richardson really only started one season at Florida, so he doesn't have a lot of experience. You know, he only had 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions this last year, but he impressed at the combine. He's a mobile weapon, and he's somebody that can get the ball down the field. He just got to work mechanics. He's got to work on a couple other things, and sitting behind a solid, steady quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo will give him the opportunity to do that.
Hey, David, Facebook blocked me out of my account again. I gotta go grab my ID. I'll be right back.
Okay, well, so I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to continue on here with our mock draft. With the Raiders no longer on the clock, we're going to move to the 8th overall pick, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are the 8th team on the clock right now, and the Atlanta Falcons are represented by Troy Strong, who is a big Atlanta Falcons fan. He's lived in Utah and now, according to his Facebook page, lives in Topeka, Kansas. And when I talked to him about who he liked, you know, on his team and what he thought about the future, he was happy with the way the quarterback situation is being handled at this time. You know, they've got Taylor Heineke and they've got, you know, Desmond Ridder is basically going to be the starter. And they're going to give him the reins of the team and turn him loose and see what they've got. And so, you know, they got Kyle Pitts a couple years ago. They traded away Calvin Ridley. Of course, they don't have Julio Jones anymore, but they got Drake London last year. So they're looking for perhaps another wide receiver, or they could go the defensive route at this point. So we'll just have to see what, you know, what has happened here. Freeze up. Is everybody froze up or just me?
I hope it didn't kick us out.
According to Mr. Johansson, we're frozen.
Johansson. Tell him I'm working with it right now.
I think we've been kicked out.
This is not cool. Tell him we're working.
It says it's waiting for the broadcast on my phone. It says it's waiting for the broadcast signal to resume. The broadcast is waiting for a signal. So because you got kicked out, everything's got kicked out. So we got to restart, but we'll begin with Atlanta and we'll come back and have to reshare it to everybody again.
Well, hang on. Let me see if I can get it back for.
Well, we're down to one viewer.
Let's see. I got comments. I might have comments coming in here.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. We'll have the broadcast back up and running here, or we'll restart with another broadcast and pick up with the Atlanta Falcons shortly. Well, let's see here.
We're still live. We're still live on Kick.
It's not showing on my Facebook.
No, they might have kicked us off of Facebook, but we're still live on Kick.
Okay, well, if we want to do Facebook, we're going to have to restart and pick back up, which was where most of our traffic is anyway.
We still have 2 people watching on my personal Facebook. Go to my personal Facebook, see if you still see it.
All right, well, I will. I'll get off of here. Okay, when I got out, mine is glitching. I don't know.
Hang on, I'm about to put my new password in. Hang on.
I apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. We've had a technical difficulty practically every week. If it isn't me and my screen going black, it's he gets booted off because we shared to too many pages. That's your fault, Chris.
Yeah, it's my fault. Hang on here. They gave me an email.
I really think we ought to start over, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Just come back with a part 2 of the video.
It's not letting me back in my freaking account, bro. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm about to log back in right now.
We should really end the broadcast and then come back and restart.
Okay.
This is just too much dead time.